Hey everyone, Karen the Warped Spinster here. I'm glad you're spending some time with me here today. I seem to always be in the midst of gloomy weather when I'm doing these, and it's very nice to have you all with me to cheer me up. Today we are going to be working with these wonky pineapple geese. And if you remember last time, I had laid them out and thought they might work because they have really non-square edges here. They are going to not be a straight grid set, but I had them laid out in a way that I thought worked pretty well. So I did take a picture of it. As you can gather, I'm going to be playing a little on the iPad today, and wasn't a great picture. It wasn't straight on, it wasn't laid out, but it's okay because for what I'm going to do with it, it will still work. And I mostly did this just so I could see which blocks I had where and how they were oriented, since they seem to fit together pretty well physically in terms of seaming them. Now, design-wise, I could spend probably 30 years or more rearranging them. And you know, this is only what, 16 blocks? Yes. And if I made more, it would get even worse. So sometimes it's just nice to have that design decision made for me. And I'm willing to go with it with this. Sometimes I would definitely need to be moving around with it. But now I want to try playing with some things. This is the entire picture that I took, and I have since then isolated it into several different, each of the columns are done separately. And that will make it easier for me to shift them up and down as I like. So you can see as I'm turning this on and off, you can see, well, you can almost see that I have them separated into columns or vertical rows. So I can, let's see, this one's probably here. I could take, well, here's what I'm going to do first is I am going to, pardon me, make this a little bit smaller so I have some room to move with it. And then I will take this first row and shift it so I can see how it would work if I decided to move things around and not have them line up in a grid-like fashion. And then I could take the second one and maybe slide it up some or down some. And you can see this is where the seaming is going to start to fall apart. So if we decide to do this, we're going to have to deal with that seam issue. And some of it is just the angle of the camera when I was taking the picture, so that's pretty bad right there, but we can see how it works if we do this. Now, of course, I can always flip them, do a 90-degree rotation. That's not a flip, sorry. Rotate them and, oops, turn that one off. And see what would happen if I did something like that. So maybe, you know, I'd move that up here somewhere, which is an option, and I might try it at some point. Oops. But for the moment, it's going to stay this way. So I could do it asymmetrically. So I've got one down, one up, and then two that are neither, or I could drop it down further. So our usual, try it and see what you like. It's actually okay, but again, seaming problems I may run into. So what might I do about that? That one I don't want to drop down much without taking the rest of them up, because if it goes off the white screen area here, then it will erase it. So I don't want to do that. So let me shift things around a little bit. Say I want to do something like that, and now my seam edges are not at all good for doing a straight seam or a reasonably straight seam. Of course, I can always square these up, and I could leave the tops and bottoms at an angle and just square up the sides so that I can sew the seam. Not my first choice because I like them being wonky. That's the whole point of the wonky. What do I call them? Pineapple geese. I don't know why I can't remember that. So now here's what I think I'm going to try. And I'm going to have to try this. I'm just going to have to because it's who I am. I'm going to try seeing what would happen if I put, say, a bias strip across there and kind of applicate them together with that bias strip. So if I took the bias strip and then I've got one row of blocks over here, one row of blocks over here, and I stitch down on either side of this on top of it, then that ties those together. It isn't certainly the sturdiest seam on the planet, but it probably would work for what I want to do. And then once it's quilted, of course, that makes a difference. So with that, I am going to mimic a black and white striped piece here. And I might curve it in order to match up these seams. And in the process, I might then end up trimming back, but let's just see how it looks. It may look terrible and I don't want to do it. We shall see. Let me, oops, wrong brush. A little wider than that. All right. So say I take, and it doesn't have to be, big wide or crazy curve at all, and it can extend above and or below it. If I've got something that's a pretty straight seam and I want to start this in the middle, I could do that as well. So let's say we take that down a bit so that it starts at this point. And I will need to make that black and white stripe. And there we have a black and white stripe. I gotta confess, I like it. How sad am I? How predictable am I? It's not really very spontaneous for me to add in black and white stripes anymore, is it? And I don't have to put it around each one. I can put some horizontal if I want to break up the vertical flow of it, or leave them all vertical if I like that flow. Now don't get me wrong, I also like the look of it just together with those blocks put together, but I really like to have that accent bit going on. So let's go and, oops, sorry. I'm going to do another one. Let's see, these I can go ahead and merge. Add another one here that's black. And I might do something different in there, not sure. So this is allowing me to cover a multitude of on the seam edges there. I don't think I want it to go. All right, somebody I don't know in Missouri is trying to call me again. My Apple Watch be buzzing. All right, now if I do the stripe on this, and I could do different widths as well, of course. Again, I'm going to change the size here so I can do things above and below. And now I'm going to do something with a different width just so we can see how that looks. And then these pieces would end up having white, plain white pieced in there, or applique down. I don't think I like that. Not even going to put the stripe in that because I don't think I like it being just sort of isolated in the middle. But let's not have it extend beyond the edges of the block. Don't know about that either. I had originally, oh well, let's try that. I'd originally thought I would just do like edge to edge in the center there, which I could now see is going to have the effect of cutting the design in two, which may or may not be a look I want. Let's give it a try, see what we think. Oops. I'm trying not to bump the table much as I do this. The new desk table has arrived. It is forged steel, so it's going to be much more stable than the one I'm on now. So this is the last. As I'm doing that, I see that it does cut it in half. Maybe all right, maybe not. But I'm thinking that that one is now too long, I think. And of course I could have it go off and do funky things. Let's try a funky thing. Alice on my mind, I guess. And so this could, oops, I forgot. Made it wider. This will be close enough. And I could have a funky thing going off on the side, just for fun. Don't know if I like it. We're just playing, you know how that goes. All right, back to white, make a stripe. Now I'm thinking Mario Brothers. Looks like a racetrack. If I do that, I think I will need to do something over on this side too. Or maybe not. How about you thought we were actually going to be sewing things together today, didn't you? So did I. Okay, so actually, no, that wasn't half bad. Nope, it was starting to go up the other way, wasn't it? It was kind of doing that. Nope. I mean, it might have been doing that, but that's better. If you haven't joined me in other videos where I'm doing this, I'm on my iPad with an Apple Pencil and using the Procreate app. Thinking I don't like that. I could do just a solid black stripe, and of course I could always insert white in there. If I were going to do a solid black, I think I would make it one of the interior ones rather than on the outside. But I'm not entirely sure I want to do that. We are in play mode, aren't we? No, that's too reflective, too sort of symmetrical for me. Might be a perfect thing for you, but for me, no. I don't hate that. Maybe it is the white stripe of it that's bothering me. The plain black would give it a nice change, or kind of a stopping point, I guess. So what if we do this one as just a black stripe? And then change that one to a stripe. It's better than the other way, but I'm still not sure I like it. I'm not even sure I like this curl off to the side, but on the other hand, that's just a little too not enough instead of too much. What do you think? As always, leave your comments of what you would and would not do. If we had, let's try this. At the top and bottom, what if we did some plain black? That's going to, I think that's going to look like it's cutting it off at the knees somehow. I would prefer to have it all flowing out into the white. But this provides a sort of a barrier. Then what I would do probably is, and this may make a difference, so let me mock this up, and that is, if this were a quilt and then I were putting on a binding, for example, not a border, but a binding. And we may or may not want it to be symmetrical or centered or any of that. And I will do the striping off screen. So I have the striped binding on it and it's way too much. So I have some choices here. And this is in scale, it's probably doesn't look as bad. This is, if I were to scale it differently, I think it would look better. But it's also, somehow it just needs to. So maybe all of this, I just group that and be done with it, could be a smaller part of the canvas. So if I scale this down to where it's a little more close to what it would be in relation to the size of the blocks, then I think that's better. But I just don't know that I like it. Can you believe I'm going to say that's too much stripe, too much of a good thing? So I could either do something else for the binding, easily done, or do less in the center of it. This would probably be more to one side or the other because that's too close to center. People will think I tried for center and missed. But I could tie these, a couple of them, into the top and bottom of the quilt so that they don't look so much like they're left hanging there. Or I could center it, which kind of goes against my nature, but it's a possibility. And we could say, take that one out. It looks kind of blah without that curve in it, doesn't it? It's just some stuff hanging out in the middle. If I say extend this out to the edge of the quilt, and then say this one, just that black strip there, were to go to the top, not sure. I kind of like having that umbilical cord. Do I then need to have this one? And let's go back to here. That off there. I noticed this in my circuit quilt when I sliced and diced all those small half square triangle units and then put them all back together again. I really liked having anchor points to tie everything together and make it a part of this surface so that it wasn't just floating out on its own. So find that one. Like it matters at this point, but and if we tie this one in down below, oh, that's still too much, isn't it? Yep, I don't like that for sure. Of course, I could tie. Oh, no, I don't like that at all. Oh, don't mind that. I don't think. Probably until I put the stripe in. I think it would be all right if I did not have that striped binding. I'm going to sit on that for a little while and let me know in the comments, of course, what you think. I could, well, here's an idea. As long as these aren't matching up at the top and the bottom, what if we did a block that was black and white? All right, off camera then I have created another block. Let me scale it down since I've been changing the size of these. I've just duplicated one of the individual blocks just to play with how would it look if I had a black and white block somewhere in the mix. So I'm going to just change this to black triangles here. And here's our goth block, which could, oops, I guess I better move it up, could in fact replace a block in here and if I do one, I probably need to do a couple more so that it has some balance. Or maybe this one gives rise to that. I don't know if I like that. It's unlike the black and white stripe, which to me seems kind of playful and fun. This is too somber. If I make it a stripe, which really wasn't the plan all along, although you may not believe that of me. Now we have a zebra quilt. Kind of like that effect in that block, but I don't know that I want it as a part of this quilt. Maybe I don't want to do any of this at all and just do a straight set. So, oops. Let's try, we're just going to leave this on the back burner to percolate, see what we think. Meanwhile, I am going to lay these out into the configuration that I had in the original photo and see what we can do about tackling those seams if we were putting it together as if it was a 16 patch. I am not at all sure in what universe I thought these were all going to fit together so nicely. When I get to be a little more particular about it, it's going to be interesting. This is too large a field to fit into my phone when it's on the holder, so sorry if I'm a little shaky while I'm showing you this. Now, some of them I think would go together pretty well. I can see up in that corner coming down this way, but then there are spots like up here, sorry if I'm making you seasick, where it's just not going to work at all. So I have some choices. One would be the, of course, two are the usual ones where I can cut things down or add things on. So say down here at the bottom where this one is just clearly not the right size for it, I could add another, I'm pointing at my camera like you can see that. I could add another white strip here and here, like a narrow one over here and one that widens here, and then add another triangle on that, another goose, and help that fit. I could slice this down, which I think is not such a good option because then I'm losing a lot of this whole last round there. This one is too wide, so of course I can trim that down, add more to this, which then affects the one above it. So you can see where I'm going with this. Freaking out. I'm not freaking out. I'm looking at options. The other thing I could do would be to sew these columns together so that I have something close to, I'll have edges of the blocks meet at these corners. It won't be a straight line, but I can at least have the meeting at the end. And then I could end up doing a curved seam to put those together, which could add a little bit of interest here because I have so much angular straight lines going on that it might be useful to have some curves in there, or it could look kind of yucky. Decisions. And then of course when I do that, I've got this outer edge to deal with. So again, I could do that in curves. If I did this direction, the vertical in curves, then I think I might want to introduce some gentle curves, and I would intend for these to be very gentle curves. Introduce some gentle curves then on some of the horizontal seams. So those are our choices. I'm inclined to make some adjustments to begin with, at least, to adding something on here, because that one is just not going to be right. And then this one, I need to do something to change the angle of it, which I could do by adding on. This one is kind of small, so I would make some adjustments, I think, adding on. These all have 5, as I recall. Yes, 5 geese in each of them, but there's no reason why I couldn't add a 6th on, or even take this one off. If I wanted to leave it at 5, I could take this one off and say this white. Could even leave this white strip on, make that one change so that the angle, instead of going this direction, is going to go that direction, so it could fit better with, well, it fits there pretty well, but then this one gets thrown off. So I think I might, in fact, change that one, which makes this one then more realistic, maybe. But you can see where I'd have to go and make adjustments all along if I didn't add curves into it or start trimming them. Some of them I could trim back. This one, for example, I could trim some off that side if I needed to, but it matches pretty well with that one, actually. So there are decisions to be made about how I want to put this together. And do I even want to have it, in a 16 patch here? I could decide that I want to make this work and make those adjustments to pieces. Or I could decide that I want to try something different. So I could do, say, put 4 together and then put 2 together, and maybe this section together, so I'd have 6, and then these 4. And then I wouldn't have to worry about fitting quite so much together there. And then figure out what I might want in between. This has some real appeal to it, I have to say. And I could make more blocks so that I've got 2 4 patches here. And maybe I would want to have another, well, I could do a couple of 2 patches here if I wanted to go with just the blocks that I have. And maybe this is where I get my stripes in there. All right, I'm going to put this back in the holder, and once I've done that, I'll come back so I don't make you seasick. I don't know that I would want all of the spaces in between the blocks sections or sets of blocks to be striped. This may make it look too fractured. Put another one here where you can see it. I know some of it's off camera here. And these wouldn't have to be lined up, of course. I would probably stagger them. Don't like that. I'm not sure that I mean, it's appealing to cut down the number of issues, the number of challenges, design challenges, by just doing smaller sections of the blocks. I'm not sure that I like it as much though. Maybe if I had more blocks and was doing a larger quilt, but I don't know that I'm crazy about it here. So I'm either going to do what I did in Procreate on the iPad, which has some real appeal, but there's also some appeal to the challenge of putting these together, figuring out how to do that. If I were doing real improv, I'd probably just be putting all kinds of real improv. If I were, there's a certain style of improv where I would be adding pieces on until they fit together, and that might work as well. I could do some colored strips, I could do some white strips, I could do black strips, striped strips, so that these fit together in more of a grid. But I like the wonkiness of these. So I am going to, we didn't do any sewing on this, which I guess isn't actually unusual for us. I'm going to sit on these two possibilities and decide which I want to do. And maybe I'll do both of them. I enjoy making these blocks, so I could certainly I think I'm going to sit on the two possibilities of putting these all together as is, making the adjustments that I need to, and still have them be wonky, but all put together into one 16 patch, or what I did on the iPad earlier. And I could do both. I mean, I absolutely make more blocks and do something like I showed on the iPad. I'm kind of intrigued by the concept of the striped block. Let's see if I can, whoops, sorry about that, find that and pull it back in here. Because, I don't know, I like having choices, and when I find things that I like, I sort of want to try them all. So here is what we were looking at, whoops. And I like that. I would have to think about sort of scale and how much background I would want on that, how much negative space. And then the binding would probably be just a plain black, or maybe a lot of those colors or fabrics pieced together into the binding. So those are the two options. That's not what I was going to show you though, was it? Okay, so I kind of like that zebra stripe look. In general, I'm not a big animal prints kind of fan. I'm an animal fan, but not necessarily a lot of animal prints, but that zebra stripe I think could make a really interesting quilt with maybe some pops of color in there. That could be zebras in the wild or something. So options, as always, we have so many options. What to do. Please add your comments, what your thoughts are about it, what you would do, what you might do differently, what you like and don't like about some of these options. This is our sandbox, our playtime, so share with each other, we learn from each other, and that's why we're here. Play and learn. That's it for today. Next week, I don't know what we'll do. Could be more of this, could be something else. I don't know. Maybe I'll make some zebra blocks and see what we think of those. So I hope to see you next week. It was fun to have all of you here. If there are any new subscribers or viewers from the Peacemakers Guild where I was last night, welcome. Glad to have you here. I'm glad to have everybody here. If you have not subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you are subscribed or not subscribed, please also give it a thumbs up. It helps other quilters to find this, or other people just interested in design to find this channel. So I appreciate you doing that. I'll see you next week. In the meantime, be well, be safe, be happy, be quilting. Peace.